Hi, everybody. Happy Sunday, and welcome to episode 14 of Officer Chat. Joining me today, I've got Andro and Destiny Eyes. Say hello, everybody.
Hello,
Hello.
everybody.
And today we're going to talk about that PUG life.
Pug life.
It was brought to my attention during the research for this episode that everyone may not know what PUG means. That
Whoa,
it's...
whoa, whoa. You are getting way ahead of yourselves. I have an announcement to make.
Oh, please, go ahead.
Okay.
Let people think about that. Let that percolate.
Is it that you don't know what pug means?
And that's how it started, yeah.
There was a really long conversation about whether or not to include that, but I digress. A huge congratulations are in order to the Tanky and Spanky Mythic Plus team for earning the first ever RTM KSM Kids with a Z Champions Trophy, which Fubarius so lovingly crafted. So congratulations on winning that for your completion of Season 2 KSM. A couple of fun numbers, because we're all grown-ups and also act like teenagers. Your achievement makes you the 42nd team in North America, according to Raider.io Mythic Teams. So it's missing the 0, but we're real close to 420 there. And if you expand that to include the Oceanic teams, your team is 69th in the North American and Oceanic regions. So way to go, guys.
Nailed it.
We just need to figure out how to get fewer teams to sign up on Raider.io so we can get our rank higher.
Yeah. That's literally lack of participation is the only thing holding us back.
So our conversation today is pugs, but you guys put a lot of hard work into getting this achievement. Do you have any tips for players who are interested in working toward this too before we jump in?
Actually, I think the biggest thing for us is do that 17 key and not fail it miserably, because that's more points than you could possibly imagine. And that 13 or 12, what was it? A 17 untimed is better than a 15 timed.
Mm-hmm.
So just do, we get a good 16 key, we time it, do the 17, and that's a huge number of points. That's really, we don't have all of the keys at 15. That was a pain in the butt.
It was fun, though, to have the choose your own adventure of the point system, which I didn't love at first, but I think I like it better now that we've sort of met our goal, that it was easier to just say, we have 4 shit keys this week and 1 pretty decent key, let's push it, and then it turned into something fun, which turned into something fun, and then that ends up being worth the equivalent of just grinding Tyrannical Sanguine Depths until we're purple in the face.
Yeah, we've talked about it a lot. I think the worst thing about it is that you can't really tell what you're going to get out of a key. So you got to, trying to figure out, we have the Spires, or Spires or Top, or one of the two that got most of us the KSM. And it was just well, it's a 15, or no, it was a 16. If we time it, we get this many points, but then it changes what your best key is. So you got to redo the math. Or if we don't time it, then it'll be this many points, and you got to do the averages differently. And it was just is it going to get us KSM? Yeah, it should.
I thought I was certain when we did the DOS, and I was like, I have a 242, which is super, super low. I only have an overtimed 14 tyrannical. If we can just time that 15 this week, I'm for sure going to get it. I was 100% certain. I mathed it out. We timed the 15. It was a good key. And I went to 1999.
Yeah.
So,
well, and I was thinking about it, and it gets really hard if you change your top key. But if it stays your lower key, then it actually ends up, you get half the number of points, right? Because it's an average. So if you were to gain 10 points on the key by timing it, you're only getting a net 5 overall.
Mm-hmm.
So, but I don't know, it kind of made some of the excitement a little bit weird. Like you were saying,
yep.
Yes, this is going to be it. No.
Damn, what? How? Oh, right, because, damn it.
Because math.
Yep. So it was really only exciting once you get within 1 or 2 points where you're like, well, shit, I can't get math screwed out of this one. If we time this key, that's got to be worth at least a point, right?
The other thing is like it's hard to tell what to shoot for, because like, oh, is it fortified? Is it tyrannical? Is it, a low key? Is it, I don't know.
Yeah, just
I think we
do
were all
do them
just
all. Yeah.
looking at what our lowest point was and trying to do keys like that, and eventually we got it.
Well, and since Mythic keys are random, you were able a couple of times to kind of speed up this process and play catch up through pugging the specific keys that you were looking for at specific levels and to target those specific dungeons that were needed. So that's one of the reasons why we thought today we'd talk about pugging.
Yay! Oh, nice tie-in. That's good.
Bringing it all back
has
together.
has nothing to do because somebody didn't know what pugging stood for.
So we had a lot of conversations about this, and starting with the basics, what does PUG stand for, and how do you personally define it? And the reason why we had a lot of discussion about this morning on whether or not to include it is, tries is supposed to be for gamers at all level of the spectrum, and like when we first started playing Warcraft eons ago, World of Warcraft, there was lots of chatter in general. That's how you had to find your groups. That's where you went for LFG. That's where you went for all of your activities. And they've added these tools to make it easier to find groups. But pugging as a phrase has been consistent throughout. So I don't know how well known that acronym is, especially for modern gamers.
I think that's just it, right? I think it's the term is pervasive enough that anyone who's played a video game in any capacity probably understands what I say when I say like, oh, we had to pug 4 spots. But like, I think its definition might be kind of mutable. Like, to know that it's an acronym that stands for pickup group may not necessarily universally be understood. And moreover, I think, courtesy of Urban Dictionary, like, I think a lot of people associate some negativity with pug. Like, I don't want to say it's a dirty word, but it's not something that's often cheerfully said in my mind. People aren't like, oh, it's so exciting, we only had 6 gillies online, so we got to pug. It's always like, we had to have 4 pugs tonight to make it work. It was bullshit. So I don't know. Like, yes, I think everybody who plays a game at any level can easily like point and understand what I'm saying when I say pug, but like, I think it definitely has a variable meaning based on your experience.
Well, I thought it was important to start a PUG discussion by defining the acronym. So PUG stands for Pickup Group. And the next question is, why should people consider pugging content?
You don't have friends. Boom. Solved it. And there's lots of reasons. Like, I mean, joking aside, if you just play the game in solo mode, I mean, there were times where you and I weren't really in a guild. We just kind of, did the story stuff, did a few dungeons if we could find a group for them, and, occasionally if there was trolling in general chat and we were available on a Saturday, we might step into a raid for a couple of bosses, more just out of idle curiosity than anything else. So I think pugging is there for people who don't have what we would call an established play group. If you're not in a guild or you don't have, 9 other friends that you play the game with, you're in that pug life.
Well, there's also a lot of time that like the guild that you're in doesn't have a lot of people on, and you still want to play the content.
Mm-hmm.
Like right now, like it's just a slow time for RTM. I'm the only one online. If I want to run dungeons, I'm pugging. Like,
yep,
that's okay.
There are some people who only play the game, for the story. We're not going to say whether or not that story is well written or not, but there are some people who only play the game, to enjoy that narrative, and some of that narrative is locked behind group content. So even if you are a solo player who's just here to, figure out what happens to Tyrande, you are, to get the length, the breadth of the story, going to have to at some point do group content. So whether you choose to use the in-game group finder tools or the LFG stuff that we're going to talk about today, you're pugging. Yeah, I think it's also... Go ahead.
It's also helpful if you missed a scheduled activity, like we raid weekly, and so it's not uncommon for people, if they had to miss the scheduled raid night, to make up those bosses so that they're still on track for night 2, or just to be able to make sure that they didn't lose any progression with the kill quest collections to work toward the skip. Like, all of those things are things that it's obviously easier if you have a group to join with, but you can also use the pug world to catch up and make sure you're not left behind.
So you used air quotes there.
Pug world.
Everybody's experience is different. It means something different. Yeah, I think it's also a good opportunity to like branch out and practice something new. I think that's how I've used it, for better or for worse. Like if I want to try feral in a raid environment, like I'm probably not gonna bring that to our guild heroic raid night and totally embarrass myself in front of 20 friends. I might, however, just randomly pick up a pug, doing a couple of dungeons and maybe a boss or two in raid as feral, just to try that out and see how it goes. And then if I have success, then bring it to my friends and family raid group. But I think a lot of people use it as like a testing ground, a way to either try out a new spec or a new class or a new rotation or a new talent. And it can be useful for that as well, I think.
Yeah, it's one of the big aspects of why I'm gearing up my hunter, because we have this aspiration of getting plus 20s in time, and new perspectives and new views and how to go through a dungeon is helpful, and pugging gets you different perspectives on dungeons, good and bad.
For sure.
Mm-hmm.
You definitely learn ways that you don't want to do something as much as you learn cool new tricks of how to do something.
Well, that's a great segue. So what are some of the benefits of pugging beyond getting exposed to new ideas and new ways to do or not do things?
I think like it's a good calibration tool. Like I use it to, like, I want to run dungeons, I need gear and stuff, but it's also a good like where am I at for the key level? Am I doing good enough damage? What mechanics are there that I don't know about as a tank? What are other players doing of my same class? It's just a super good learning opportunity across the board. If you go into pugging like, oh, I'm the best at this, there's nothing to learn and everybody's bad, then like you don't gain anything out of it. But I learned in a pug that hunters can reset the second boss of spires so that we have better access to the mini boss by just right clicking and feign deathing really quick, and he goes away. And it's just like, oh, well, that's something that I can do like really easy. Or even applying it as like a tank. Well, we're doing that trash pack before the boss. I can just taunt the boss into the trash pack. The boss goes away, and now he's reset. Like we can do that mid pull. We don't have to wait. And that's just a little tidbit that like I would have never thought of that if I hadn't been in a pug and saw people doing it.
Yep, 100%. You get to see how other people do things, which is always fun. I like watching, if I pug with a different tank, they'll run a completely different route. Like someone will go left where everyone else goes right, and we like right. Everybody likes right. The streamers go right. It's the established meta, and this guy goes left, and I'm like, oh, we're gonna wipe, and then we don't, and we have a good time, and the count is perfect. Instead of being at 101%, we're at 100.0, and that shitty pull that I hate, we don't have to do. And like it just sometimes it takes one person's innovation, and we end up with like a Shay type route in Plaguefall where this is game changing for that season. So yeah, it's just fun to be exposed to new stuff, and I like just from a selfish perspective, just being able to target like one boss or one key specifically. If I either need a specific loot drop or if I need just that key for IO score purposes, just being able to, I'm alone online at 6 o'clock on a Tuesday morning, but there is a 16 the other side group forming up, and I can get in that. That's what I needed for KSM. Like, it's just there is kind of a nice thing to be able to just laser focus in on that one thing that you need specifically, or if I missed one raid boss, or I like that singular focus ability.
And now I don't have to do spires ever again.
See, Dunzo.
Well, one other thing too is like we talk about like new perspectives of how to see things, but you also like you get reminded of the good decisions that we've made. The packs and spires that we skip, like the going left after the first boss. Like, we decided to just start skipping those spear throwers because they just jump around. You can't get them grouped up. They don't move around. It's just a pain across the board. And guess what? Every single pug pulls those, and it's always a freaking nightmare.
Yep.
And like, pat ourselves on the back. Yeah, we figured out a better way to do this.
Mm-hmm.
But then also, like, you get to challenge yourself. Is there anything that I can do to make this better? Because we're going to have to do it anyway.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
I like it as a way to make new friends. Sort of like when you get to cherry pick the specific mythics that you're trying to do, or you want to farm specific raid bosses. Like a recent win that we had in the Pug world as a guild group that went to Pugs to fill a need was we needed a warlock for a raid. And we found a warlock, and a few days later he joined the guild, and now we have a permanent warlock in raid. It's amazing.
Yeah. I was gonna say, like, I think our two recruitment tools are whether or not you know Rob, and then otherwise it's you've pugged with one of us and we liked you.
It's true. It is absolutely true.
Yeah, new friends is definitely a thing.
Coincidentally, a major portion of our recruitment is also dating sites.
It couldn't hurt.
Yeah. All right. And what are some of the detriments of pugging?
I think the other side of the coin we just talked about. So, you know, the elephant in the room is you will have to play with strangers. Like, that means talking to, sometimes even being invited to voice comms with people you don't already know. And that can be by itself the biggest barrier to entry. I think of myself as being a fairly outgoing and jovial person. I like people. I'm gregarious, but I don't want to talk to strangers. It takes some effort sometimes to get me to want to pug people or to join a fully, a 4-man pug that's looking for just a lone druid, and they're like, hop on voice chat. Oh, I don't wanna. Don't make me do stuff. So I mean, yeah, like for the same reason that you're gonna make new friends, you also have to risk, meeting new people.
Yeah.
Which can be balanced by just having a people buffer, which is
Sure,
why I
yeah.
usually do most of the talking when we meet new people.
Definitely bring a social buffer. The other flip side of the coin that we just talked about is there will be unfamiliar experiences, which is good if you're learning something new. But like, if you are 100% sure that you've got, like, say for example, a route solved for, let's just say, that Spires dungeon we've been talking about, and then this one tank who's just in here to practice his own thing, which we just advocated is one of the best things for doing in a pug dungeon. He's like, you know what? We're going to try pulling both sides, both left and right sides. And you're like, well, we're going to be way over percent, and these are stupid pulls, and some of these are not efficient. But like, we're all in here for the experience. They're going to let him do it, but it is awkward to just kind of be a part of something that's unknown and not necessarily tested yet, and where you're looking at it going, I want to be open to new ideas, but this is stupid.
And I hate it.
Yeah, right. That can be scary sometimes.
Yeah, I have a hard time pugging. Like, I just really dislike pugging as tanking. Like, going into a group as a tank alone, I'm just not going to do it. But and then even as a group, like, if we're pugging one person, like, when we're pushing hard content, I really, like, it's not fun to me. I like pushing hard content with friends, and yeah, meeting new people is good, but I'd rather meet new people in a more chill environment and less of a, like, this is a serious, like, this is going to be hard. Everybody's going to be on that line of frustration when mistakes happen, and I don't like introducing new people to that I don't know, and I don't know their reactions. Like, like, even in the guild, like, there's a reason why we push 12s and lower keys a whole lot, and only push those 15s when we're in the right mindset and we're in the right zone, right? Because people get frustrated and it's no fun. So, but then as a DPS, I find the mentality's different. I can let go of that frustration and just focus on being a better player myself. I don't have the pressure of the rest of the group. It's not my key. It's not my, like, I can bubble hearth out and be okay with that if it's a shit show. And like, and I don't know why mentally, like, that's just so different, but as a tank, I find it extremely hard to pug. I just have no interest in it.
So I've found in pugs that usually it's not the DPS's fault. If something goes horribly sideways with a key, it's the tank's fault or the healer's fault. And so it's kind of unforgiving because DPS can just be jerks and they can pull things that you skipped and they can do all
Yep.
kinds of things to cause all kinds of trouble for the group and they don't really take that responsibility. And then they get real mouthy in chat and that's
Yeah.
that's a hard experience as a healer.
Yeah, it's really frustrating too because like that is the go-to like excuse kind of thing. But like the healer wouldn't have had to heal you if you didn't stand in crap. Like
Yep.
this is a pull at a difficult key where if you take avoidable damage, you just die. And that like the responsibility of the DPS, a well-placed interrupt, using all of your abilities actually makes or breaks a run. There's even going like when we were experimenting in like Halls of Atonement, right? Doing triple pulls. Like I don't do those pulls without Shay and Try and everybody else doing their jobs perfectly. Like I just don't survive as a tank. So, but in a pug, like you don't have that expectation of responsibility. At DPS, just sit there and turret, and like I like that. That's low pressure. I can I can stretch myself like where I can, and I don't have to be upset if the tank gets upset. Like
Yeah.
Yeah.
whereas when I'm a tank, like I'm like it's all your
And the
fault.
one getting upset.
hmm I've been blamed
I,
for a host of shit this last week. Just pugging
Mhm.
as a tank. We were in a key where a hunter disengaged in Theater of Pain away from one of the mini bosses into the Captain 5 pull that patrols, wiped us, and then yelled at me for a shit route.
Mhm.
Like, there's no choice there. There's like you can't opt to go around that patrol. I put a skull there now to remind people not to, well, let's say, monk chi torpedo into it. But yeah,
Who
it's
would
just
do that?
I just love that reaction of like there's just no accountability. It's always the tank's fault, and
yeah.
if you die, it's also the healer's fault.
Well, that's a really nice transition to for players that are looking to dive into pug content. What are some of your recommended best practices with playing with strangers? As a healer who has been yelled at, and the reason why I don't like to heal pug groups is because I don't want to get yelled at. Don't be rude. I'll start with
Yeah.
that one.
Well, this is
Just be patient.
the perfect opportunity for you to be the change you want to see in the world. Like it's easy to adopt that pug mentality of just, oh, we wiped on the very first trash pull because this new healer doesn't know what he's doing. I'm out. But like you'll get a positive reputation, and it's a big community, but it's not infinite. Like people will start to recognize you, your name at least, and you will develop a reputation. It's either being a skilled player who's totally chill and they'll want to recruit you, or as a total d-bag that they will only accept if there's literally no other applicants. And I mean, don't kid yourself. That is a consideration sometimes. So
That's how
like,
you find yourself on ignore lists.
yeah, just don't. I mean, our rule for rating applies here. Don't be a dick. I mean, be
Hmm.
patient. It's a pug group. You can't expect it to be, you know, Dratno smooth when he streams his plus 22 key. You can't expect to get into a group with 4 random strangers and have it go off that smoothly. That's not what you're signing up for. Be realistic about what your expectations are. Yeah.
I think keys are a great or like pug keys are a great place to test yourself as well. So there's like putting you on the spot, Meg, as an example, like you healed 14s and 15s and you did great, but you were also with a coordinated group who knew
Who
what
knows
we
what
were
they're doing?
doing.
We didn't pull anything unexpected.
And we knew that like, oh, we have to wait a second,
Hmm.
and that's totally fine. And how we approach that key helps you as a player.
Hmm.
But then pugs are also like, from a tank and a healer perspective, pug keys teach you how to handle the shitstorms. And you will fail keys and you'll fail keys and you'll fail keys, but you'll get pretty good eventually at everything's going sideways. What can you do as a healer? What can you do as a tank? How do you handle this situation? How do you handle that situation? I know I've said it a bunch of times to people who are trying to get into keys. Just run keys. And pugs are a great place to learn because they're not always smooth. If it's always smooth and everybody's taking care of the interrupts so that you don't have to, and everybody's handling the mechanics because we're not expecting you to, like, you're not learning, right? You're not learning what kills you. You're not learning, you know, what the impact is when that DPS over there isn't doing anything.
Right.
So when we're in guild groups and we harp, like, you have an interrupt button. Feel free to use it. Like, pugging will get you frustrated at the DPS who is not interrupting, and you will gain a better appreciation of, maybe I can use my interrupt to help because nobody else is doing it.
Honestly, if we pug a DPS and they use their interrupt, they're like,
yeah,
the best.
Like,
yes, you have hit the jackpot of all pugs.
Oh, you stunned something?
Yes.
Yeah. You went for the explosive without being asked.
Yep. It's little things, and being vocal also helps. Just not just volunteering, which I think is super important. Like if you're in a pug, just being the guy who says, "Don't worry, I have a great instant cast spell. I'll handle explosives this whole run." Like that's worth its weight in gold. If I, as a tank, can just focus on threat, movement, kiting, and I don't have to worry about also tabbing to all of these fucking explosives all the time, that guy's going to be in every key with me. Like, he could have dumpster tier DPS, but he's making everybody else's life so much easier that he's going to be along for the ride almost every key that we run. So, like, be vocal, volunteer for jobs, chat it up. It's like, you see, I hate to use sports analogies because I'm not a professional athlete, and a lot of people that we play with are not professional athletes, but you ever watch people playing sports? There are no silent teams. There aren't teams of professional athletes that are not always chatting it up and exchanging information. It's because people need to have that information, and it creates that just atmosphere of team, of camaraderie. Like, so even if it's strangers that you don't know, don't be afraid to hop in voice chat, or even just through text in game, be talking about what's coming up, be talking about how you can handle the next interrupt, or just remind everybody, hey, this boss drops void zones, or this guy's got a ticking explosive. If you have immunities, call it out. You can solo soak that stuff. Like, there are those simple little reminders where somebody might go, oh shit, I forgot about that. I could do that. And you'll be that guy who keyed them into it. Now suddenly, you're sitting really pretty as the genius of that particular dungeon. I don't know. I just think talking it through is always a good idea. And then in that same vein, if there's not a leader in the group, somebody has to stand up and be the shot caller. A lot of times it's, the expectation is that it will be the tank. And that makes a lot of sense, because that's the guy that's got to go first, so it doesn't make any sense to put the brain in the back. But if the tank is just not familiar with the dungeon and you are, I think there's a lot of value in stepping up and just saying, look, I know I have a route for this, I know what we need to pull, I know what the bosses do you guys mind if I just kind of call it? And a lot of people will be very happy to just surrender that power to somebody who knows what they're doing. I have a very particular way that I like to do things, but if somebody else has already, cleared this dungeon or cleared this boss on Mythic and he's got 2 cents to chime in, I want to hear it. Like, I really do. And then I guess I have to say this as a raid leader. The other side of that is if there's somebody already in a position of knowledge or leadership who seems to be making good calls, like, just fall in. Like, you don't have to second guess everybody's decision. If he says the interrupt rotation is alphabetical, don't say, but I'm the demon hunter, I should be doing it first because I get resource. You're not wrong, but like, if everything is working, probably don't rock the boat unnecessarily in a pug. It's certainly not worth like flame warring over it.
The other thing is part of the be polite and be engaging and talk is, if you are going to come down on the negative side of somebody or provide unsolicited advice on whatever that person happens to be doing, take a look to see if their guild members are in the group with you, because sometimes it'll be 2 or 3 guild members that are helping a new player or someone who's playing in a new role or a new spec or a new class that they haven't done before. So before you get all cranky, make sure that you're not about to embarrass yourself by being cranky in front of their people who are going to back them. Like, have a little patience and awareness of who you're talking to.
We've got, like, you say, it's how you say it.
Exactly.
It is absolutely how you say it.
We have 2 schools of thought in our guild. about how to help, and like be the Zeph who just says, "Hey, would you like to know about this?" And if the person says no, you let it go. Zeph just walks away from that conversation. Cool, live forever in ignorance. I'll make fun of you later for it. Like, not a problem. If the answer is sure, what do you got? Then he'll share everything that he knows about that, or the timing, or the positioning, or the talent that is better used here. But he always asks first. I love that, where it's just like, "Hey, do you want to know how to do this?" No, cool. Like that's a
I would like to live in ignorance.
That's a great way to approach it. Where in a pug.
My favorite pug experiences along those lines this week was a going up the stairs where you normally skip in Spires. We had a DH in the group. Our tank told us to invis skip through that, and I was like, we have a DH. The tank responded, the DH isn't spec'd into that. Okay.
Cool. Yep.
All good.
Yep. You know what? I said something, and I'm sorry that I did. So.
Oh, and don't bail on a pug at the first sign of difficulty. So one of the things that we were talking about in terms of value is getting to experience how other people play the game and stay open-minded, because you might learn something. What you learn might be how not to do things. So, give it a chance. And you've signed up, you've committed that time, especially in something like a key. If it's a high enough level, they're not going to be able to finish it without all 5 members participating. So you could look at it as a learning opportunity.
Well, and if something goes sideways in a pug key, there is a 1 in 5 chance that it's your fault.
Yeah,
that's true.
It's more important in keys because there's no recovery from that, right? If you're already struggling to 5-man it, there's no way that group's going to 4-man it. So like think long and hard about. I don't want to advocate for wasting your time. If it is like abundantly clear after the 4th wipe that you do not have the coordination or the DPS to do this tyrannical key, it's totally fine to just politely say, "Hey guys, I'll give this one more shot," but I think. Even with heroism, we were only getting him to 30% before we were out of healer mana and everyone was dead. I don't think this is a thing we can do. It's a whole other thing to pull the first trash pack, wipe because somebody, butt pulled something they didn't mean to, and then just scream at them profanities and insults about their mom, and then just leave the group. That's a bad look for anybody. Like, we all want perfect 16s every week. We want to do 10 16s that are, easily timed, effortlessly plus 2'd. That would be the ideal scenario. No one would walk away from that. But that's not, it's impossible to get that. And it's, I think, an unrealistic expectation to think that's how all pug keys are going to go. So realize that they're going to be bumpy, and that sometimes there's value in just completing the key. Timing for score is best, but I don't know. There's a lot to be said for just completing it. And you make friends that way. You make friends in the trenches sometimes more than the guy that just zipped through the DOS in 18 minutes. He's going to be gone before you have a chance to say hey, but you spend 30 minutes killing Muzala, and that healer that stuck through you the whole time, he might be your new best friend.
And another thing that's come up quite a bit is getting rejected from keys, like not getting into a group that you're looking to do. And that can be really hard to get rejected over and over again, but you can always start your own group. As someone very rightfully pointed out to me, no one can deny you if you're the one that started it.
I know nobody wants to hear that, and we all have horror stories, and some people in Guild have been talked about, it's impossible, my DPS is so off meta, no one wants me, my gear score is too low, I don't have any IO yet, I applied to 162 keys and I haven't done one yet this week. That sucks, that really does. I applied to 94 keys to get one complete. I was in 3 dungeons, only one of them was completed on 96 applications. It's hard to hear the word no that many times and not take it personally, but you can't. They're not rejecting you. It's the law of supply and demand. There are literally hundreds of applicants, and odds are at least one of them is going to look better on paper than you. They don't look at it and say, Zell, I've heard about that guy. I don't like him personally. They're just going to look at your number, which, fair or not, exists, and they're going to say, we're just going to pick the guy with the biggest number.
And let's be fair, anybody that's ever played with Zell would love to have him in whatever group you're putting together.
I 100% agree. That's why I'm saying, be vocal, be friendly, be utilitarian, and then he'll be on somebody's friends list and he'll get invited, and it won't be because his number was higher than anybody else. It's because he's been pleasant, he's a team player, he knows what he's doing, so he gets invited. Over somebody who's, a complete turd the entire dungeon, but technically has 10 points higher IO score than he does. That matters. It really does. That matters. Yeah.
Yeah. It's worth putting, like, if you're living the PUG life, it's worth putting time and effort to get your numbers bigger.
For sure.
If you haven't completed, look at your stats. If you haven't completed, or if you're timed 11 to or 10 to 14 keys, you have like 7 timed. Nobody's going to invite you to a plus 17. Like, it's just not going to happen.
Right.
If you're eye level 220, nobody's going to invite you to a plus 14 or a plus 13. And it takes a lot of time. You have, especially with the new score system, like every week you're like 8 keys at least.
Yep.
And
but don't be afraid to start your own.
But it pays off. Like I've had pretty good luck. Well, I'm having better luck now. Like trying to get the key level up to like 13s, 14s for me took a little while, but we ran, guild groups for half a day yesterday and got a bunch of 14s done. Now I can basically just walk into 13s because I have a whole bunch of 14s in time now. Mm-hmm. And that matters a lot too. Like, I know when we look for pugs, like, great, your eye level is high, great, your rating is high, but have you done a lot of keys? Mm-hmm. What are you trying to do? Like,
have you ever timed this specific key?
Yeah.
Yeah. And have you found that you have a better experience with the PUG groups that you do earlier in the week, or later in the week, during the day, in the evenings? Have you noticed anything like that?
There's definitely like time difference, right? Because the pugging is, North America wide, but being on the West Coast, if you're trying to pug keys at 11 p.m., there's not a lot out there. If you're trying to pug, 4 p.m. on a Friday, there's tons of keys. Most of the day Saturday. But yeah, like off times, I find that if you can apply to 5 keys and keep your 5 key applications just rolling, then you'll get into way more keys than if, you're trying to do a halls and there's only, 6 keys available.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, for whatever reason, I find earlier in the week to be better across the board, regardless of whatever role I'm applying for. I don't know if it's like that nagging, like the serious, wow, people just hit reset, so everything's available again, so it's time to grind hard really fast. But, between Tuesday evening and the weekend, I feel like there's this doldrum, and then Monday night is the worst time to pug in my mind. But like Andrew's saying, during the weekend when everybody's off of work, or like there's those large opportunities where there's many people online, that's a good time. Or first thing Tuesday seems to be my personal experience, anecdotally, is when I have had the most success finding keys easy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and if you're trying to pug the raid, like,
yeah,
Tuesday, Wednesday is the day.
Let's talk specifically about pugging the raid content. What tips do you have pugging right at the beginning of the new week, Tuesdays and Wednesdays? What else?
Be ready to spend a lot of time.
Yeah, it's an investment for sure. You're not going to get, well, I'm sure someone will, but you can't expect to get invited within 5 minutes of your first application. And even if you are, it's going to take them a while to cherry pick the rest of their raid group, so you have to be patient. I know we've already talked about patience, but looking at my notes here, just know what you're walking into ahead of time. Know the Sanctum of Domination fights. Like, do not be opening your dungeon journal once you're in the raid group going, oh, there are 10 bosses, that's cool. Wow, Sylvanas is the last boss, I hope we get to see her. Like, you're going to waste everybody else's time, you're going to get called out, you're going to get put on the spot at some point because you're the pug, especially if you're in a partial guild group. Just do a little bit of homework, and this is one of those areas where you can sort of differentiate yourself. If you were comfortable enough to whisper the organizer of that group and to say, hey, look, I don't have AOTC yet, but I know all of the fights on normal and heroic, I've watched all the videos, I can volunteer for any of the the side jobs that need doing. just talking to somebody and saying, look, I know I don't look great on paper, but I promise, like, I've done it on an alt, or I've watched all these videos and I have the knowledge base. Sometimes that does go a long way. It's just nice, like when we're trying to find pugs, that matters to me as a raid leader. Someone who will reach out and say, don't have AOTC yet, but I've seen all of the fights through heroic, and my brother does them on mythic, and I watch them. Like, that's a person who I, sight unseen can kind of trust more than someone who just signed up and said nothing.
Yeah, raids are a lot different because, like in Mythic Plus, you can't remove and replace somebody, right? You kill the key. In raids, that's not true. So you find the whole spectrum. Like when we pug people, we're more interested in somebody who's going to stick around and play through it with us. Your random try-hard pug group is going to boot the lowest DPS players, or the players who make mistakes, or the players who die in fights, in a second. Mm-hmm. And that's, yeah. But that goes back to, you have to be able to invest the time and grow, learn, and keep trying.
Yeah. It doesn't really apply to a lot of what we're doing, but in the higher end, if you're trying to pug, and I've seen a few mythic groups for Sanctum already put together on our server, it's important at that level to have some good logs. Like if you're DPS, to have some high parse logs to just show somebody, like especially if you don't already have AOTC or cutting edge, to be able to like think of it as an interview at that point. You're literally interviewing for a job, and the guy who's the yes or no man in a mythic or if they're on Sylvanas on heroic, they're not going to waste their time if they're not anything but certain that you're going to be a good pickup. You have to prove that you're a good hire, and as much as I hate advocating for logs, if you're serious about doing this pug life thing, then you need to find and save a couple of good logs that show, here's where I didn't die the whole fight and 99th percentile parsed. That could be meaningful.
You can also look specifically for pug raid communities. I personally don't know where to find one because I am deathly afraid of raiding with.
I think you're muted.
I muted myself, sorry. You can also look for pug-specific raiding communities. So I personally don't use one because I would be deathly afraid to raid with someone else that wasn't my RTM family, because I don't want to get picked on for being bad. However, there are some communities like Friendship Moose or Azerpug who are dedicated to organizing pug raids and look forward to the opportunity to get as many people exposed to the new raid content as possible.
It's a good way to get those initial parses, to get your feet wet, to get some experience for sure. And then we talked about it a little bit, but like, come prepared not just with knowledge but also with the material components. There's nothing worse than me inviting someone who I like on paper to a raid group and then seeing that nothing they have is enchanted, and when I ready check, they don't have a food buff, they don't have a flask buff, they're not wearing a rune, and it's like, and then I tell them, hey, flask up, I don't have one. Come on, man, like, I can even trade you one, but like, what are you doing here? What are we doing here? We're raiding. Like, this is serious business, bro. But I mean, it's just one of those things that makes me roll my eyes and kind of go, I shouldn't have invited this guy, and next time I'm not going to, because how hard is it to find a $300 gold flask and then just throw it on? I don't know. But it's little things like that do make a difference. And then in Sanctum specifically, there's a lot of people who are pugging exclusively for domination sockets and those gems. So if you have already if you've already unlocked your 3-piece bonus and you have those domination socketed gear slots already, whispering someone and saying, look, I can trade leather domination sockets, like, that sounds like a cheesy backdoor way to get into something, but it actually, in the pug world, is very, very strong right now, because that's one less hungry mouth that raid leader is going to try to feed. Or if he's that armor type, he's got an in with somebody who can potentially trade him the only thing he's put this whole pug raid together for. So don't undervalue that. If you can get that stuff early in a guild group or in another pug group, that is a leg up for future pugs for sure.
So looking beyond pugging the raid, how does that change if you're interested in doing Mythic Plus content? What tips do you have for pugging dungeons?
Well, don't be a dick and bring all your stuff.
And know the paths.
Yeah, like for me, pushing my hunter, Like, eye level and score is the first thing that people look at. It's that first impression, right? And you have to spend time. Like, go do Korthia and get upgrades, because those 3 eye level upgrades on 3 pieces of gear make you stand out. If you haven't done all 12s or all 13s or all 14s
Yep.
in a dungeon, go do those. Don't expect an invite. If you haven't done any dungeons, don't expect an invite for a plus 15. Go do 6s, then go do 8s, then go do 10s, then, like, you have to build your score, and it takes a lot. Like, it takes actual effort. You're not just going to get a free ride through content with random people.
Yep. No zeros. If you have a 0
Unless
in
it's
any key, your score is, I promise you, too low to get into whatever you want to get into. Just no matter what level you're playing at, if one of those keys has never been done this season, you are not getting into whatever you want to get into.
Yeah, you should also be aware of the keys that you're applying to. So if you're applying for a 3 chest push for a 14 key and you've only completed a 12, do not expect to get that invite.
Yeah, it's important to like align your expectations and goals to that of the people who are already forming those key groups. What you said, Destiny, is solid. If somebody is putting together a, push group, we're going to 3 chest this, has to be timed, pros only. Like, that is a good group if that's who you are. If you are a person who makes 0 mistakes, who loves the stress of 3 chesting a plus 15, and who has done it enough to be confident, then this group is self-select, and this is perfect for you. However, if you're a person who's only timed 14s, does not like being yelled at, is not 100% familiar with the routes, then you can easily look at that listing and go, that one's not for me. And that's totally fine. But learn to read those cues. You want to look, in the case of that second example, you want to look for something that says like, sanguine depths for completion, or learning run, or, teaching opportunity. Those do exist. I have seen them tagged, and those are runs I myself have sometimes chosen. If I don't want to be yelled at for being a shit tank for the 10th time today, I will take that sanguine depths just for completion run, just to get my 10th key for the week done, and just have a chill time with it. I will sometimes also apply to the, we're going to 3 chest push this, but it's just, those words are not, they're not for nothing. And I think it's one of those reality checks of being real with yourself of, am I this person? Because if you're honest with yourself, probably not. Like, I'm not a DPS that's going to 3 chest a plus 16. My DPS is probably too low, and I don't know. I probably am not that guy. Am I good for a good old 1 or 2 chest? Try your hardest run? Absolutely, 100% of the time, every time. But like, am I going to sign up saying, I definitely got this? I'm your 10k single target DPS guy, classic big dick. No, I mean, I'm probably going to skip on that run, if for no other reason than with a bunch of random strangers. That is going to be such a high-stress, toxic environment that I'm out. So learn to read those kind of, like, they're not subtle because they're literally right there in the post, but I think people tend to just skim over them or think like, oh, well, I can still do that. Or they look at it like, oh, these guys are so serious, they're going to carry me. That's not how that works. If those people are that violent and that serious, they will eat you alive. Yeah, and we talked a little bit about networking, but that's another huge part of it is join the Discords. Like, I'm a part of the Alliance Mythic Plus community Discord, and I've learned some stuff there. It's an easy place to find groups. They have groups sorted by like every 2 or 3 key levels, like 2 to 4, 5 to 7, 8 to 10, 10 to 12, and you can just put in the Discord like, I'm just looking for a group in those categories, and it's easy to find people. It's easy to meet people. I haven't had any toxic or negative experiences there, although there are horror stories that abound. But then if you get into a group with a Zell, and you're like, this guy was so cool. Like, he did his job right. He was nice to me. He didn't yell at me. Send him an invite. Get him in your friends list. Invite him to your Discord so that the next time it's a Saturday morning and there's nobody on, you at least have a potential in with a friend who didn't screw the pooch and treated you like a human being last time. And that's the basis. That's the foundation of you trying to build a regular playgroup. Because then maybe Zell has a friend. Then before you know it, next Saturday you're playing with Zell and Zeph. You know what I mean? And it just builds from there.
Maybe Zell has friends? What?
Confirmed a couple.
Sign me up for the Zell and Zeph team.
For sure. But that's how it happens. Like anybody who's in a pre-organized play group, it's not that the game came to them and said, "Behold, here are your 4 new online friends. They will carry you to victory and glory." Like those people created, probably over a long period of time, an organized play group that was cobbled together through trials and tribulations. It wasn't, it's that easy. It's easy to look at people that are having success and say, well, they were just handed it. And like I have looked at people who have had success and be like, oh, well, yeah, that guy just got it. Like he didn't have to work for it. Anybody who's had any success had to work for something.
You pretty much just described RTM, okay?
Yeah. So just cultivate those friendships, maintain or create that social network. Discord is great for it. You're welcome to use, I think, unless there's like a huge terms of service violation, RTM's Discord to just invite new friends for the purpose of running keys together, so you can keep track of them later. Battle.net friend them, even just write their name down on a post-it note, like whatever it takes to make sure that when they're on or when you're on again, you can find that same group of people. The more you can create like familiar groups with 2 or 3 people you've already run with, the smoother those runs will start to go. And then before you know it, you're not even pugging anymore. You're just running keys.
Mm-hmm.
I put this down, and I don't know how feasible it is, but consider other roles. Some classes don't have other roles. Some classes are purely DPS.
And we spent a lot of time talking about how much it sucks sometimes to be a tank or a healer.
But I will say that it definitely increases your chances, even if it's just numerically. Every key will need, 3 DPS, but that's only going to need 1 tank or 1 healer. Those are essential, air quotes, roles. You can increase your chances if you're applying for 2 or 3 different roles. Now there's 3 chances that someone will want to take you to something. It's harder. I'm not going to lie. In the PUG world, people are dicks to tanks and healers. It seems to be the case, but it helps. Like when I queue as a tank, I often get into a key much faster than I do when I queue as a DPS. It's harder, it's more stressful, but the queue time is way less. So if you're at the beginning of this journey and you're gonna sit down on a Saturday morning and say, I have between now and 2 o'clock this afternoon, I'm gonna run as many keys as I can to get that score up, and you are comfortable tanking and have access to a tanking spec, that's probably gonna be the best bang for your buck. As long as you're comfortable just sitting in that throne of hate.
So we don't have many audience questions, so I think we can probably wrap things up with just a recent PUG story that either went well or didn't go so well.
I've been pretty lucky this week. I've pugged maybe 15 or 20 keys this weekend. Most of them were timed. Had a couple of super funny instances, like the DH can't CC. That was great. I had a last boss in Spires. We were on, I think it was like a 14. We were on track to time the key, maybe a 13. And 3 people in the group were on the same server and in the same guild. All 3 of them disconnected at the same time. Tank, healer, and one of the DPS. Poof, gone. And like they came right back, but like with 2 DPS sitting in the intermission on the last boss, we just died in like 4 seconds. It was pretty funny. I had some great actually the last key that I ran where I got the bow finally in Spires was a really good group. Had some probably like 25% good experience and 10% bad experience, and the rest of them were just like, I guess we're going to stand in Sanguine for 10 seconds.
Yep.
Which is fine, like, whatever.
Yeah. You're not the healer, you don't care.
Mm-hmm.
Now I'm the DPS who has to burn through that HP bar 4 times.
I'll kill him again. We had... So my white whale has been trying to get the 3 angel mini bosses in Spires of Ascension dead at the same time. It started like, I don't know, maybe 2 or 3 weeks ago. I think it started in a pug with Shay, and like just as a lark, I was like, well, let's just pull all 3. And she, like, I was just being kind of a dick, and she was like, let's do it. Okay. Like, honestly, why not? It's not a fortified week. eventually this is a strategy we could potentially employ. There's no, like, there was the prideful reason for not doing it before, potentially, depending on where your count was. But I like trying to get that done, and we finally got it done. I think we've done it 1 out of 5 times in PUGs this week, where we managed to survive and successfully kill all 3 at the same time. Twice with 2, and then we came so close the other night. Actually, I guess that wasn't a PUG group. I think it was all guild, where we almost did it in guild group. But just being there with 3 random people, coordinated just enough where all of them had 0.2 hit points and then 0 hit points on my unit frames at the exact same moment was like chef's kiss, just perfect. And then you look around like, did anybody else see that? Nope. Cool.
Yeah.
No one will ever believe me.
I had a few, like 2 runs where the tank just pulled 2 of them, which I think is actually that's pretty good because it's pretty safe without the scaling damage. Or you do the, I don't know, I don't like doing the spears, but if you do the other 2, like, it's just like doing one of them, except there's 2. And I think that's a good stretch. Like, that's a good challenge that you can apply to a PUG group. But you, like we said before, you have to communicate, have to tell people what you're doing, have to let people get those cooldowns, but have to have the spear. Like,
I also tanked a DOS full PUG where the healer was the leader of the group and insisted that the most efficacious way of handling Muzala was for all of us to go to each of the 4 totems one at a time.
well, that's a choice.
That's exactly the stance that I took on it. I just said, yeah, boss. Sure. Like, maybe there's something to this that I couldn't appreciate. But no, it was literally just a 6-minute boss fight of each of us, all 4 of us going to one thing at a time. I just wanted to see, for the sake of maybe there's an opportunity here that I'm not understanding, maybe there's a magic thing. No, it was just like a 4-minute overtime key because we spent 6 minutes and 32 seconds on Muzala on like a 14. Good times. No questions?
No questions.
Well, yahoo.
Look at that. We're done on time.
Yeah, buddies. All right. Well, I think we'll get everybody out of here then so we can rest and recuperate before raid tonight, because
Raid.
oh no, we have Fate Scribe still. I was going to say we have just 2 easy bosses and then Heroic, but somebody didn't kill Fate Scribe last time, so...
It's true.
I mean, it was all of us that
We've
didn't
got,
kill Fate Scribe last time.
for RTM family, we're going to just brute force Fate Scribe. I'm going to, I think, just assign people to rings. We're going to get it done. 1 pull first thing tonight so that we can hopefully one-shot KT, get our skip, one-shot Sylvanas, and then spend a couple of hours in Heroic. I want to try to get back to what's his bucket so we can practice the 2 malevolent dispel strategies that we've got working. So that'll be fun. I won't spoil that now, but thank you everybody for watching. I really appreciate everybody paying attention for Officer Chat. It's still our best program, and I just can't thank everybody for tuning in enough. We will see everybody in game tonight, and if not, we'll see you next weekend. Bye, everybody. Thanks for watching.
See you guys.
Bye, everyone.